Here we go, people. Another season, another Premier League predictions video, this time for 2023. Last season was a bit of a mixed bag. I thought I did sort of okay. Definitely looking to do a bit better this season, but I think it's going to be tough because you've got the top 6, which really could go in any order this season with a lot of big moves. I think we're going to see a really big shake-up in like the bottom 10 of the Premier League this season, so it's going to be quite a difficult one, but we'll see how we get on. We're going to start things off, as we always do, with the bottom 3 and work our way up to the top to an eventual champion. Starting things off in 20th place, I am going to go with Bournemouth. And again, before I go any further, I'm pretty confident for the last 2, 3 or so years that I have, whatever team I put in 20th has always gone on to do bits. Like last year, I put Brentford in 20th. They comfortably survived relegation. So don't worry, Bournemouth, that's probably a good thing for you. But for me personally, I feel like it's going to be just too big a stretch for them to stay in the Premier League. But they barely spent anything, really. They haven't really improved on what is already a decent championship side, but a side that, in all honesty, I was a bit surprised actually did manage to get back up into the Premier League. And without Eddie Howe now at the helm, are they going to be able to repeat the same sort of heroics and stay in even longer? I'm not so sure. In 19th place, like I mentioned, the team I put in 20th last season, I'm going to go with Brentford. Brentford, to be fair, had a fantastic start to their season, and that really helped set the tone for them staying up. But I reckon they're going to have a bit of second season syndrome. I think they just lived too hard off the start to their first season last year, and I don't think that they'll quite have enough to stick in the league this season. They lost Ericsson as well, which, I mean, toward the second half of the season, they weren't amazing, and he wasn't stellar or anything, but he is a loss. So I'm going to say Brentford in 19th. In 18th place, this was a seriously tough one between who I've got in 18th and who I've got in 17th. It is Fulham. I am just ever so just going to put Fulham in 18th. To be fair, the only reason for that is pretty much just their reputation. They are indeed, at least in the last couple of years, a bit of a yo-yo club, and it's just working against them on this occasion, really. If it wasn't for that, I might have maybe put them a bit higher. It pretty much all comes down to Alexander Mitrovic. I know that he is a good striker. I know, I'm a Newcastle United fan. I was watching him when he was still with us, and even in the Premier League, he still did okay. But the fact that he is just the greatest Champions League striker of all time, you wonder, will he be one of those strikers where he's insane in the Championship, he comes up to the Premier League, and he barely scrapes 10 goals together? I'm very confident that he will get 10 plus goals for Fulham this season in the Prem. I feel like only just, though, he will hit double digits. Will it be enough? I'm not super sure. I'm only just having them in 18th. But yeah, the team that I've put in 17th, and the other team I would not be surprised if they went down, would be Leeds United after losing Rafinha, Phillips. That's just 2 of your biggest players now out the door. They have maybe been recruiting a little bit better than Fulham have, even though they've lost big players. I still think maybe that'll hopefully carry them and just get them over the line. Their team is also full, though, of Americans, so that could also work against them. Hell, they even just signed, what, Adams and not Sargent, Logan Sargent, someone Sargent, I don't know, but they signed too many Americans. You can't be calling it soccer and expect to survive in the Premier League. At the very least, I suppose I've got them there, but in 16th place, I'm going to go with Nottingham Forest. I personally believe that of all the 3 promoted sides up into the Prem this season, they have definitely had the better transfer window, brought in some very good players. Hendo and Lingard definitely stand out for sure. It's been about 20 seasons since they last appeared in the Premier League, and I'd be very surprised if they just went immediately right back down straight away, so I'm going to keep them in maybe 16th. In 15th place, I'm going to go with Southampton. Now, I really don't expect a super amount from Southampton either, but I still think they'll just about survive. They've picked up some okay players, with probably their main one being Joe Aribo, a midfielder from Rangers, who I think I've seen a handful of times and looks quite good, so I'm sure he'll be good for them. I still think they're lacking a real quality striker to sort of partner up with Shea Adams. I don't really know if Adam Armstrong's really that guy, and Broya has obviously gone off as well. But yeah, with Joe Aribo in the midfield, Ward-Prowse is still there. It's actually not too bad a midfield for a team toward the bottom of the table, so I think they'll stick up, and who knows? They've got a new owner now too, by the way, so maybe in January he decides, you know what? Stuff it. I'm just going to go off, and maybe they make some signings and stay safe. In 14th place, we have got Everton. Now, I put Everton in my top 10, as I'm sure most other people did. Did not think that they could have nearly gotten relegated, but they really did look incredibly poor last season, and I still think that they're not going to immediately get over that and get right back up to being a top 10 team again. I think they're going to have to struggle still a little bit this season. They're getting a giant hole in their team with Richarlison gone. They haven't really made any big new signings. They have made new transfers, but no real big names that stand out. Like McNeil and Tarkowski are good, but I don't know if they're huge game changers for Everton, but who knows? They have spent big on some pretty big names in the past, and they've all turned out pretty garbage, so who knows? Maybe these sort of players are exactly what they need. Premier League proven players. They also lost 4-0 to an MLS side, which I know it's pre-season, but that does not bode well for their chances in the actual Premier League as well. Now, in 13th place, I'm going to go for Crystal Palace. I feel like last season they had, again, a bit of an overachieving season, and by that I mean just did a lot more than what people expected of them. And I gotta say to Patrick Vieira, you know, that is a very well-managed football club. Hodgson did surprisingly well, and now Vieira's done a very good job as well in just his first season. Losing Gallagher will have its effect, but they had a decent transfer window as well, so they'll hopefully rectify that. They also, toward the end of the last Premier League season, looked very, very strong for teams sort of in their area down toward, not really the bottom, but sort of middle of the table. So I expect, you know, Crystal Palace to be a fairly solid side again this season. They should probably just about avoid any sort of relegation scare. In 12th place, we have Brighton and Hove Albion. Again, like I'm talking about those overachieving clubs. Brighton finishing up in the top 10. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. So probably, no, definitely their best season in the Premier League. Can you immediately see them repeating that success or even going better? Me personally, I don't. I expect a natural drop off, and I think they'll drop off maybe just a little bit. Basuma's gone as well. Their squad does have a lot of still very underrated players, like to this day, but I reckon 12th is fair enough for them. In 11th place is Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, this was a side that I think a lot of people were pretty comfortably putting in their top 10s very consistently a few years ago, but now they're not quite the side that they were. That, you know, that squad that was just full of Portuguese players isn't quite the same. There is still an insane amount of Portuguese players, but that identity is slowly like going away. They've got Raul Jimenez still as their main striker up top, and he's obviously sadly, since, you know, his really terrible injury, he's just not really quite the same. No one's going to hold that against him. They've got Adama coming back, but I don't see Wolves cracking top 10 because I really do think there are some, like the spots for 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, they're going to be so tightly contested. I just don't see Wolves being a part of that. In 10th place, I'm going to go with Aston Villa. I definitely expect Aston Villa to get a bit of a boost. This is going to be Gerrard's first full season with them as well, and I do rate him highly as a manager. They have spent a bit of cash. They've got some very good youngsters in their squad that they can call upon. They signed Diego Carlos, which hilariously enough, as again, a Newcastle United fan, we were looking at him, ended up going for Sven Botman instead, and so Diego Carlos has gone to Aston Villa, so that little personal matchup would be very interesting. Maybe one concern for Aston Villa is that they weren't fantastic toward the end of the Premier League season last season, so hopefully they'll rectify their form in pre-season, start off a bit stronger, and who knows. 9th place, we're going to go with Leicester City. Now, they obviously were not fantastic last season by their, you know, pretty high standards nowadays. They have also had a lack of transfer activity, or real significant transfer activity, so maybe putting them in 9th is almost quite high. But the reason I think they'll do okay in the Premier League is because they were missing Jamie Vardy for a pretty decent chunk of that middle latter end of the season, and when he came back, they really did look quite good again. All their players should hopefully be fit. They'll probably push a lot further, and also they've got no European football like some of the other clubs in their sort of vicinity are going to have to be putting up with. So I think we will see an improvement from Leicester this season, but only 9th place. And in 8th place, I am finally going to say it, it's Newcastle United. This is by far the highest I've ever put my own team in a Premier League prediction ever. I never would, in my wildest dreams, have ever thought, yeah, no, we're pretty good. We're a lock for like top 10. Nah, man, crazy. But I've got a fairly good amount of reasons to doing this. For one, we are, or probably were, arguably the best form team in the Premier League in the second half of the season. Once Eddie Howe took over, after that January transfer window, the team just was rejuvenated and just completely transformed. You got to remember, we only had like 10-something points at the halfway stage of the season, and we finished it with 50. So that's like 40 points in the second half of the season. If we did that back-to-back this season, we'd be looking at 80 points. I'm not saying that's going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen. But from the 50-point total that we had at the end of last season, with the team we have now, with the form that we've got, if we can continue that, I can definitely see us adding maybe an extra 10 points or so to that 50-point total. We've added in Sven Botman, who was a sensational centre-back. We've added in Nick Pope. Trippier's going to come back from his injury. And hopefully, speaking of injuries, Callum Wilson, he is still our #1 striker. And if he gets injured, which he's prone to doing so, it could be a big problem. I mean, Newcastle have been trying to land another high-quality striker to go alongside Wilson or to swap in and out in case anything happens. Haven't been able to get him yet, and I can just see Wilson getting injured and it really stuffing up our season a bit. But if all bodes well, no injury or no real significant long injuries, I can see Newcastle definitely getting 8th place, not getting Europe, but getting here or thereabout. In 10th place, I'm going to go for West Ham United. I still think that they're definitely a lock for top 10. They do need a better striker than Antonio. If they get him by the time the transfer window ends, that could really help out their season a bit. And I probably would have put him a little bit higher if they had got one. Yes, you heard me right. But the team that I'm putting in 6th, I'm putting down as my one top 6 side that I don't think is going to particularly do all too well, or at least will be the worst top 6 side in the Premier League. So just bear with me in 30 seconds. You'll find out who it is. I think West Ham will bounce back after last season. Again, they weren't particularly strong toward the end of it. They lost the Europa League place because they really were. you know, they were fighting with Manchester United there, and not so much Arsenal, but mainly Manchester United for a Europa League place. They nearly got it. They nearly sent Manchester United and Cristiano Ronaldo down to the Conference League. That would have been hilarious. Didn't quite happen. I expect West Ham to maybe not focus too much on the Conference League, depending on how far they get into it. But if they get knocked out early, I think a West Ham 7th place finish is still pretty on, it's on brand. But now then, the top 6 people, and this is the team that out of all the top 6 teams, I don't particularly expect to do all too well, and it's going to be Chelsea. I have got Chelsea in 6th place. They lost the Premier League's best centre-back last season, and then they also lost Azpilicueta. They have lost Lukaku. I know Lukaku was not great, but he's just a good option to have in your team, even if he wasn't really as fantastic as he was last season. Where is their proven goal scorer? They didn't really make like a Haaland Nunes kind of signing to replace Lukaku. Yes, they added in Sterling, but it's not exactly like he's a number 9 you can rely on for a really huge amount of goals. And let's be real, his Premier League season last season wasn't amazing. He's still going to be an okay player for them, but I don't know if he's like a reliable guy to get you an X amount of goals per season. They did add in Koulibaly, who I think was like a world-class centre-back maybe 2 or so seasons ago. Is he still going to be good enough with, you know, he's nearly 32, almost 30. I think he's about 32 years of age. So is he still going to be able to push at the same sort of level? And even if he is going to be good enough, they probably still need another bloody centre-back or 2 anyway. They're really light in that department. I mean, Christ, they also lost Christensen, and I know he's not amazing, but how many centre-backs can you lose and afford not to replace? So yeah, not enough additions for me, losing too many people. Tuchel's been there for a while now, and while I don't think he's a bad manager, maybe just having the same guy at the helm for a while could also be a bit strenuous and maybe shake things up, lose faith quick. I don't know. That's just my assumption for Chelsea. Now into 5th place, I am going to put Arsenal, and I think maybe a lot of Arsenal fans watching will be like, no, we're on for a big season, and I can understand you thinking that. They have had probably almost arguably the most impressive preseason of any Premier League side. They have been very strong. I don't know if preseason is going to be a true indicator for an entire Premier League season. Yes, they have made some big signings like Zinchenko. They've got Vieira, they've got Gabriel Jesus, who again went off in preseason. Is he going to go off in a Premier League season? Their transfers are very solid players. They're not star world-class players, but I think they are going to be good, and they will improve the Arsenal side. It's a huge season for Arteta, and I think they're only still just going to miss out on Champions League this season just because of the teams above. I expect to do just that little bit better over the course of a whole season. And those teams are in 4th place, Manchester United. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of this top 4 positioning, I think, has quite a fair bit to do with whether or not they get De Jong. I'm not sure if that is still going to happen. It's reported that it will. If they do get De Jong and it does happen, I would not be too surprised with Manchester United finishing in 4th, only just scraping in. There's also the chance, yes, that they might lose Cristiano Ronaldo, but in my opinion, I don't think if they keep Ronaldo or if they lose Ronaldo, it's really going to have too much of an impact on the team. If Ronaldo stays, he will still get his 20-ish something goals a season, but it will come at the expense of having to play in a way to really mainly facilitate him. If he's not in the team, I think those other goals will be made up through other means such as Rashford, Sancho, Martial, and whatnot. I mean, hell, in pre-season without Ronaldo, they were playing that pressing, quick counter-attacking football, which worked for them so brilliantly the season prior to Ronaldo getting there, the play style that they had to give up in order to facilitate Ronaldo. That's why my biggest take ever is that, like, I genuinely think Manchester United would be better off without Ronaldo this season, but we'll just see whether he stays or not. It's not the greatest midfield, though, in the world. You've still got Fred and McTominay. If they add De Jong into that, awesome. They've got Van de Beek. If he can have more of a role in the midfield, we shall see. And Bruno Fernandes, will he hopefully get his form back somewhat? I get the feeling he probably will. So that's why I'm just going to have Manchester United in 4th. As for 3rd place, I am actually going to go ahead and say that I think Tottenham Hotspur could be on for a decent season. I don't know if they're winning the Premier League. I think they'll get Champions League. And I actually do expect a bit of Spurs this season. Kane had a bit of a slow year. He didn't really take it off completely, but he was not amazing. Tottenham wasn't really amazing either. Heung-min Son was borderline running the show for him, but I think him and like Kane and Son will definitely pick it up. And now they've added Kulusevski, who was doing bits for them when he joined, and so he'll have another season with them, and I think he'll also be very good. That front three is very impressive. Oh, and then you also just forget about the fact that they added in Richarlison to that as well. Very deadly attack, and with Conte now at the helm a little bit longer, full season here, I'm expecting a strong finish. I'm expecting a very strong finish for Tottenham in 3rd place. They had a strong finish to last season as well. They look a team in form. I've got them in 3rd. But now for the final prediction, ladies and gentlemen. Who will be the champions of the Premier League this season? It is once again down to two teams that I pretty well have, like everyone else, clear of the rest of the competition. It is Liverpool, it is Manchester City. In second place, I have got Liverpool, which means I believe Manchester City will win again. Shocker, me putting Manchester City top of my Premier League predictions. It's crazy. But let me explain why I've got Liverpool in second. I think Mane is a big loss. Nunez, while he had that one game where he scored 4 goals and looked incredible, a lot of the time he is on the ball, he looks like a bit of a deer in the headlights, a bit of a donkey, like he's not a super consistent quality player. He strikes me as a kind of striker that's going to have his moments. He'll have a big game here and there, but he will not be super reliable across every 90-minute game in the Premier League this season. I wouldn't expect him to bag like 7 or 8 in a row. You've still got Luis Diaz, who's probably going to have a bigger role in this team, and I think that's not a bad thing. You've got Jota and Firmino still to an extent. That'll definitely contribute as well. Still a deadly attack, even without Mane. Salah, of course, as well. But Mane, I think, is a big loss. I wonder how much it's going to shape their team. And I'm still figuring out if Nunez is going to end up being a good fit for Liverpool as well. But yeah, I've again got Liverpool finishing in second place. I still think they'll be clear of the rest of the competition, but they'll just once again fall one short of Manchester City, who have just become absolute Premier League animals. They have turned the Premier League into a farmers league. Pep Guardiola and that side, they have just obviously can't do it in the Champions League, but they are without a doubt Premier League bloody specialists. Going back to what I said about Nunez and will he fit Liverpool's system, I kind of feel the same way about Haaland as well, but I just believe Haaland is such a proven beast of a goal scorer that they will make it work, or if they don't make it work, he will make it work. He will find a way to get his goals. I personally don't think he's going to have a 20+ goal season in the Premier League. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more like in that 15 to 20 bracket, but I still think he will be a success. Will Haaland do to Manchester City what Ronaldo kind of did to Manchester United, where he just becomes this target man that you need to feed constantly and it sort of disrupts the rest of the team? Or will he find a way to integrate into Pep Guardiola's way, that Gengen press, that working out wide, that cutback? I don't know. I'm sure it'll definitely work for, like, it's got to. Whereas Ronaldo is like a little bit older and he's got his way of playing. I mean, Haaland is still quite young, and so he's still more impressionable with Pep drilling in a certain play style into him. I think he'll make it work. And on top of that too as well, you've got Calvin Phillips, who is just a perfect Fernandinho regen. He will slip in there brilliantly, and they've already got Rodri and a bunch of other great midfielders, sensational defenders. João Cancelo is obviously still going to be, I'm sure, great, picking up the number 7 now. Yes, they lost Sterling, but they can also fill Foden into that position. And yet, no, that was actually not that was not a intended pun. They've got Grealish as well. They're covered. They are covered for the loss of Sterling, and I just think again they're going to be too bloody quality over the course of a 38-game season. I've got Manchester City winning the Premier League this season again. Will anyone topple them? Will it be Liverpool? Could it be Spurs, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea? Or if Newcastle just going to skip the years of growth and just immediately win the Premier League, get Champions League? That's what I'm hoping. Or will we completely crash and burn and only finish in 15th? Hey, that could also happen. But that is it for me though, people. Those are my Premier League predictions. I suppose I could probably chuck in things like my Golden Boot winner, my Player of the Season, and whatnot. I think I'm going to go with Haaland getting the Golden Boot, but I still am going to stick to my guns and say he doesn't get above 20. I reckon he will win it with like 18, 19 goals. Player of the Season, I could probably pretty safely go with Kevin De Bruyne again. Last season I said like Kai Havertz. I tried to be really different and it blew up in my face. So I'm gonna play it safe this season and just go with KDB for Player of the Season. And as for best young player, I'm thinking I'm not going to go with 3 Manchester City players. I don't know if Odegaard is still considered young player. I don't know what his age is. I think he'd be like 22 or 23. I think he'd be 23 now. I might actually go with Gabriel Martinelli because he was really picking up toward the end of last season. So maybe he continues on, takes another step in his game, and I think maybe he could be quite a good solid player for Arsenal this season. So yeah, I'm going to go with those 3. But of course, let me know your Premier League predictions in the comments section down below. Do you think I've got it right? What adjustments would you make? Do I know ball? Am I a fraud? Whatever you feel, just drop it in the comments. And yes, sir, lovely days. We're only about less than a week away from it. Can't wait for it to start. Roll on the Premier League season. See you all next time. My name is MasterBucks. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Catch you all later, and bye-bye.